So Anuprita is saying not able to hear. That's why, because nobody is speaking. Can you hear now? Perfect. So I'm not sure why everybody went on mute when attendees started to show, but we are here and we will speak as soon as it is 11:01. Again, good morning,
Sure.
everyone. We'll begin in just 1 minute. So it is 11:01 and I see about 55 participants. Let's give it just 30 more seconds and then we can start. I think we shall start. Paul, over to you, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Vikas. Thank you. I think you are so kind to wait again for last 2 minutes, and then we have seen good participation. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We welcome you for the wonderful session around demystifying user and data security. Before we start, I wanted to take a minute and explain the background around Elite CISOs. I'm sure that many of you have joined the EliteCISO sessions early as well, but I'll take a minute for others who joined the first time. So EliteCISO is a group, 4 CISOs, by CISOs. We've formed about 2 years now. We have different chapters across the country, and we have one international forum as well. So far, 2,500 plus participants. We have done about 125 plus events. The objective of Elite CISO was to share the knowledge and come together as a community, spread the learning, spread the key takeaways, what we have learned in our experience. So our major format is around trainings, a partner event like us where we ask experts to share their knowledge, and we do have chapter meets. So initially, before lockdown, we used to have physical meeting as well, physical events, but now we do mostly webinars. Just to give you a glimpse, this is the team of founders of EliteCISO Forum: Anuprita Daga, Vikas Arora, Rishi Rajpal, and Falgacha myself. I'll take a minute to explain our formats around events. So if you see my screen, we have done a lot of events around around information security. So we have done a very good awareness session while lockdown started. We have done a lot of webinars around with Akamai and other partners. We've also discussed a lot of threat intel briefing, BCPDR, and trust me, we've created this valuable repository for the community to ensure that whenever we talk here, it will give back to the community, and this repository will be available for you whenever you feel. Let's say if you are doing specific on the API protection, you can just come to our website and just have a look. So all this repository is very valuable for us and everyone in the industry. Upcoming events, if I talk about, today we are talking about demystifying user and data security. Soon we're going to have very important aspect of our own personal life and build your own brand. So this is a very important webinar which we are eyeing for. To talk about some of the social initiatives, CISO fitness is something which we have been doing, and thanks to Vikas and team and the community where we came together on a fitness goal, and we are doing very good here. You can just go and then probably take some motivational inputs from the people who are running since almost 150 days now. If you talk about some of the training, so this is very good format which we have thought of delivering to the community, that we do a lot of formal training. So CISP is the one which is expected to start by 11 July. We have also one more important topic, which is cybersecurity and regulatory, which I feel is very important for all of us. You can just go and register here. Moving further, we have identified one of the very good format of delivering our ideas and CISO and CIOs knowledge in terms of podcast. So this is very unique in the industry, where we talk to specific experts who would have learned a lot of things during their experience, and they're setting their actual knowledge. So if you talk about cyber insurance or cloud security, if you talk about the endpoint security, trust me, these are real life examples, and people can actually share their experience and giving you a lot of inputs. Last, we will talk about the membership. So you can just go here on the website and fill your form and be member. Please note that this is membership only for CISOs, CIOs, and cybersecurity leaders. Once you register here with us, we'll add you to respective WhatsApp groups, and you will you'll have all the updates around EliteCISO initiatives. With that, I will move this particular today's agenda further, and I'll give this to Vinny from Forcepoint to take it further and introduce everyone. Over to you, Vinny.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining this session today. And thank you, EliteCISO team, for giving us the opportunity and creating this platform for us. I'm sure that you would be aware, or some of you would be aware about what does Forcepoint, what do we do? So if you're not aware, I'll just give you a brief of what we do. So Forcepoint is primarily a leading user and data protection cybersecurity company. And we are primarily here to safeguard organizations like yours while you're on your journey towards digital transformation. And Forcepoint is, the solutions are adapted in real time to how to interact with data, providing secure access while enabling employees to create value in the organization. We are based out of Austin, Texas, and we are, for India, we have 4 offices primarily around, in Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, but obviously we're spread out all over the country through our value channel partners. Coming on to the introduction on the speakers today, we have Shalabh Bhatnagar, who primarily heads our channel business for the North and East region. He's based out of Delhi, and he has 20 years of experience in the IT industry. He's an MBA in IT and sales from IIM Calcutta. And we have Brijesh Miglani, who heads the sales engineering for Forcepoint for the North and East region. And he's, he has a varied experience across industry verticals, from banking to telecommunications to manufacturing. And before Forcepoint, Brijesh has worked in, several security companies, and companies like Hitachi, Dimension Data, and Wipro as a security consultant as well as a solution architect. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I would be, sending you or sharing some links of some great blogs that have been authored by the Forcepoint lead consultant. So please have a look when you have time. We would have a feedback form at the end of the session, and it would be great if you can fill it up with your inputs. And thank you so much. Over to you, Shalabh.
Thanks, Vinny. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks, Fall, for inviting us on this elite forum. I mean, Elite CISO is doing a great job in terms of bringing the community of security professionals together. So today I will like to start that we understand that these are unprecedented times. I mean, the things have gone for a toss. These are personally and professionally very, very challenging. The way we have been doing the business conventionally has completely changed over last few months, specifically, if we see. And in these daunting times, it is very important, while most of us are operating from home, how we take care of being a remote user, how we should be able to touch our business. There are two important aspects: the user, which we all are, and our organization employees are, and the data. These are two important functions of any organization, and we need to be very careful and make them completely secure. With respect to the evolving access mechanisms. So today we'll be talking more on how do we demystify user and data security with modern age technologies. So before moving to that, maybe I'll just take a little bit of flashback. I mean, as Vinny said, I have been working in the industry, and most of us have been working in the industry for quite some time. And I think I can safely relate this picture, which is old school parameter with about 10, 15 years back. I mean, I can safely say that our IT organizations were like this. I mean, the user was sitting inside the perimeter. The data was sitting inside the perimeter. We could see what is coming in. We could put the security controls, and we could see what is going out. So everything was within the perimeter, and it was absolutely safe and secure, and that was a good time. So now, I mean, things are changing. I mean, over the years, there are a lot of transformations which have happened. One of the important transformations which we have seen over the years is internet. I mean, internet, we talk of today, most of our businesses, irrespective of the verticals, are somewhere or the other touching internet, dependent on internet. And that is a biggest transformation as far as IT domain and IT parlance is concerned. We have seen the applications are moving away with respect to the access. I mean, what better example than O365? Most of the people on this discussion today or in this call today may be using O365. 5 years, 6 years back, in India specifically, if we would have talked about email, the most important vector, it was to be sitting in the premise. And now most of us are increasingly adopting O365. So this is a very great example in terms of how the applications are moving towards cloud in the form of SaaS. And even we are now moving, and we have seen the benefits of moving the applications even in the public cloud like AWS, Azure. So the applications are moving away, and the users are also no more within the perimeter. So users are also moving away. We have businesses are evolving, technologies are evolving, businesses are growing. So the branches are increasing, and we have remote users. We are using VPN, we are using MPLS, and coming to a central egress point where we have built in that castle wherein we have the security controls, and through which the inspection is happening, and then we are redirecting the traffic to this web or SaaS-based applications or public cloud applications. But is it sufficing our need? I think it is increasingly becoming broken because of the evolving landscape. Digital transformation is happening. Cloud is becoming the new normal. People who are sitting outside are increasingly adopting to go on cloud. Various applications they are accessing. And more importantly, when the offices are growing or the organizations are growing, the branches are growing, the users who are sitting outside are growing, it is becoming increasingly difficult to go and use a single egress point. The results are, as you're seeing on the screen, I mean, it's a bad user experience, slow. We are investing more dollars or investing more money in terms of building up those security controls, in terms of MPLS, in terms of VPN, And even after doing so much of things, the manageability is not easy. The visibility to the IT is not that great. It is a siloed approach. So the times are again shifting. And what is a better example than the current situation which we are all facing in, which is COVID, wherein the people are working remotely.
So Shalabh, I think you have pretty much covered the situation which we were talking about a pre-COVID. Okay, we were discussing this digital transformation journey over the period of time. With every CISO and CIO, we were discussing this. How this get changed now in COVID-19 situation, because from the last 1 or 2 months, we have seen that this is drastically getting changed, and we are seeing that digital transformation is not driven by COVID. So what's your view on that?
Yes, significantly, Brajesh. I think the scenario in last few months has changed significantly. I mean, this is a funny picture which we are seeing. I mean, this is how we are operating from home. I mean, we are seeing and operating from home, accessing our applications, accessing our internet. And currently, I am presenting from my home. I'm using a broadband. My family is also using the same broadband. So, I mean, it is all open. We are not sitting behind the firewall. The challenges have increased multifold for the organizations. I have to take care and I have to reach out to my, business applications. I have to touch my data from my managed or unmanaged device. One challenge. Other is I'm accessing the internet through open sources. Again, is big challenge. So these challenges are evolving, and this is creating a paradigm shift in terms of how do we access. Is the access to be secure? And if it has to be secure, how secure? And from what perspective? How do I make sure the data is secure? So these are some of the challenges which I see, Brajesh, which are evolving with this situation. Can you help me give you a little bit of more perspective as to how organizations, more relevantly the CISOs, are perceiving this with respect to the secure and safe, easy access to the businesses?
So Shalabh, I think before I unfold what is a modern access requirement nowadays, and I'm doing this exercise on understanding those risks across the organizations. Definitely, there are multiple things in market. We are talking about zero trust and all those things. But let's first understand the challenges which are actually faced by the customers. And I've understood those challenges from the last 2 months while talking with each and every CISO and CIO. So here I want to put a poll questions to our audience. And Vinny will help me in polling that questions, that let's understand the major challenges that most of the CISOs are facing in this COVID-19 situation. So Vinny, if you can just pull out that polling questions for all of us. Thanks, Vinny. So the question says that what are the major challenges of CISOs are facing while addressing the COVID-19 situations? So let's understand from them that what's their typical challenges while provisioning and access for remote workers. So Vinny, do we have the results for same?
Do you want to give another 5 seconds for them to kind of answer?
Yeah. Let's take another 5 seconds. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's
end the poll.
Yeah. Let's see the results. Great. So we are seeing the results that the major contribution goes to a data protection, because definitely it's a compliance driven VPN, internet security, cloud adoption, and user behavior, right? So user behavior, we understood, is increasing the piece. Yeah. So what we understood in this polling question is the correct thing, which I am seeing from most of the CISOs and CIOs. So let's understand the remote access requirement in the current stage, where a person like Brijesh is working from home, where I'm using my broadband or a dongle when my broadband doesn't work perfectly fine. And I'm using my personal laptops as well as the laptops provided by the company. So there are different risk factors which are available, different risk surface which are available with remote workers currently. So the first and the foremost access that they are looking for is an application-based access. Okay, few of the customers are still using a legacy methods of doing a VPN back to their data centers. Few have controlled in a more holistically way by putting some host checking mechanisms, some user behavior mechanisms to control and only allow the good assets. That plays a major role. I think most of the efforts of the people are going in provisioning those VPN access. It's very strange that internet access, which has increased the footprints over the period of time, still most of the organizations do not have any security controls for their roaming user from an internet perspective. They still rely mainly on a VPN or an antivirus. And I'm talking about typical masses here. Okay. Yes, we know that few of the organizations do have internet security while roaming, but yes, internet security plays a major role, and that we can say a base of it, because whatever we are accessing is through internet. The third thing is your cloud applications. Now, this cloud applications, which are increased over the period of time because of digital transformations, whether most of the companies started with the SaaS offerings like Office 365, G Suite, or Salesforce, and then moved slowly to the infrastructure as a service, and few have their own applications hosted on. So the need typically arises across three factors. And when we say that we need to demystify, these is the modern edge. So this is what we call as a modern edge. So how we can focus on user and data attributes, as we understood from a polling perspective, the data protection still plays a major role, because we all understood that data, whether these lying in a cloud, whether those lying on a machines, needs to be protected. Few of the customers, I was talking to one of the enterprise customer last week, and they were saying that they want to understand the user productivity. They want to understand the user behavior. So Shalab, if I go back 3 years back when Forcepoint was talking about the human element, we were questioned again and again how you make it possible. And this year we have seen RSA in January was talking about user perspective has increased over a period of time, and we all understood that threat cat and mouse game is still a reactive game. It needs to be more proactive. It needs to be more predictive. Now, if we go on this approach on a modern access requirement and the problem statement that you have mentioned, let's readjust and understand how this problem statement can be addressed with the new architecture. And Shalab, do you think it's all makes sense? Because I don't want that it's a marketing gamut. It's a technology that is required to address this solution, an approach to address this solution.
Absolutely, Brijesh, because I mean, that is what when we are interacting with the customers in the market, we see a definite need where we talk about the convergence of the networking and security coming together on as a piece in terms of the secure access, uh, behavior analysis, and security coming hand in hand, and that is what we are looking out. And probably we have heard about some of the terminologies like zero trust, which we'll be touching upon as well. So I think, yes, absolutely. Maybe you can explain it a little further on this.
Yeah. So I still don't want to put it across to a single solution, and being a technical consultant, I don't say that a single solution will resolve the problem. The approach, the strategy needs to be adjusted. We are helping the customers because every customer, every domain of a customer has their own path. Okay. My path is different. Shalab, your path is different. Our path may goes with a different approach to have an end result. Okay. So if we are saying that currently we are on premise, on the next day we'll be on cloud, not feasible, not possible. The approach needs to be there, which should be started with some on-premise security, maturing on a security, maturing on a processes. Information security process also needs to be readjusted to support this zero trust, which we are saying what you call as a zero trust or remote workforce. Okay. So before we go and touch upon each and every technologies in detail, I want your view, Shalab, on there are so many buzzwords, and every time when we do see in some transformation in the market, we see multiple buzzwords. When we see a 0-day threats, we started seeing anti-APTs of the worlds. Okay, start talking about the APTs factors. Now, when we are landed into a situations, we are talking about zero trust. we are talking about a SASE, which Gartner launched last year. So what's your view? What's the difference between a zero trust and a SASE, if you can bring some attention to it in a very layman language?
Sure, sure, Rajesh. I think, uh, I mean, in the industry, IT parlance, and we have been, as you rightly mentioned, we have been seeing a lot of buzzwords. We have been hearing a lot of buzzwords. BYOD was one, I mean, a few years back, we were hearing about BYOD. Then we heard about Kata, which is a more recent on a user behavior. And now, as you rightly mentioned, we are talking about zero trust. So zero trust, I mean, by concept is basically, is a belief that the organization should not automatically trust the users, the devices, the IPs, whether they are within the parameter or outside the parameter. They have to necessarily be verified as to what is that they are, having the right to access, from where they are coming, are they completely required to access what they're trying to require. And that is what essentially a zero trust environment means. So it is by assumption, it takes that everybody is untrusted. We have to completely do the complete verification before we give the access to important business applications and data. So this is what I understand from zero trust from a layman perspective. And then there's another important concept which came out last year, around mid of last year, by Gartner, SASE. I think most of us would have heard about SASE, which is Secure Access Service Edge. Now, this is again a framework, a security framework. I mean, as we know that the organizations are increasingly moving towards cloud. It is basically to enable the organizations to have faster and secure cloud access. Imagine a situation, I mean, where an organization is having 200 branches. Now, for accessing from each of those branches, the cloud applications or the business applications hosted on cloud, they have to have some basic networking infrastructure and security infrastructure, maybe in the form of firewall, SD-WAN, secure web gateway, and WAF, and many other things, DLP. So this is becoming increasingly difficult as the footprint is increasing. Manageability is a challenge. So this concept says bringing together the networking and the security from on-premise to cloud, so that we can easily manage, easily can deliver the services, easily roll out the business with the complete agility. And that is what SASE is all about. So if you see, on one side, it is zero trust, which is talking about how do we access, we need to verify. The on other side is we are talking about SASE, which is moving this to a cloud infrastructure. So there is certainly overlap. So this is what I understand from these two concepts. Probably, if you can help us in terms of getting a better view from a technological perspective of SASE, that would really help.
Understood as a layman, Shalabh, is definitely what you have articulated. But zero trust is a piece which comes also as a part of a secure access service edge. So when we focus on an approach, the three pillars of the approach, which we will go and detail discuss over the few slides, is edge, data, and user. So when you understand from an edge perspective, zero trust plays a role. And zero trust can be understood as a provisioning mechanisms for authorizing your user. Okay, there are multiple technologies which talk about a zero trust from a VPN provisioning point of view, from a private access point of view, from an authentication private point of view. There are multiple technologies which says they provide a zero trust part of it. Okay, and depending on a customer to customer, it can incorporate those technologies. But zero trust is corresponding to an edge perspective. Okay, how to trust that edge, and that edge can be your branch, that edge can be your laptop, that edge can be your mobile. Okay, so zero trust networking, which you see in a SASE model, is talk about that. From a user and data perspective, it talks about a content and a context perspective. So from the last 1.5 years, we all understood that the industries are moving from a threat to content to context. And that's where the frameworks like Kata and other comes into picture. Okay, so it's more from segregating and touching upon these edge, data, and user, moving from provisioning to content and to context. And that's what we unfold within this discussion. Okay. So, and as you rightly mentioned, that putting those things into a cloud so that you can address most of the remote workforce and you can scale that mechanisms over the period of time. And you can also provide a real-time threat protection, because if you see from the last 3-4 months, the amount of a hacking mechanism, ransomware, has increased over the period of time, because the people are not behind the highest security mechanisms. Okay. So that will what is an exact zero trust and SASE security will be. Now, from a layman language, I want to understand from you. Okay, we got a layman aspect of a zero trust, we got a technology aspect of a zero trust and a SASE. Now let's take a use case, and if you can run through that use case and share with us what is the exact issue that you're facing while you're provisioning an access to a user. What are those risks which is there in the mind of a CISO?
Absolutely, Brijesh. I think as I mentioned at the start of the conversation, we all are working from home, and two things which are really important is user and data, which is what needs to be protected. So consider an example. I mean, somebody like me. I mean, here we are talking about Joe, but I mean, it's Shalab who is working from home, and so there are three important things which needs to be taken care of from the perspective of myself. I mean. Uh, when I'm trying to access the internet, whether it is from a managed or unmanaged device, but more importantly, I'm accessing internet, whether it is a general purpose internet surfing or to access certain cloud applications, I should be protected. That is one important thing. So the user needs to get protected from malicious websites, malicious links, so that he is completely safe. So that is one important aspect of working from home or from remote working perspective. The second important aspect is with respect to the access to the applications. I mean, I am working, I'm not behind the firewalls, I'm not in the perimeter, I'm working from home as explained. So from, if Shalab is trying to access and touch the corporate applications and the corporate data, which is absolutely critical and confidential, I should have a secure access. I should be able to get a secure access to my corporate applications. And while touching those applications, if I'm bringing some data to my laptop or to my device at the home, we need to make sure the data is secure. I mean, today, if I'm downloading certain data from official app to my post, I mean, to my even my managed device at home, I can still do a print. I can still take out a printout. I can still do a kind of send the data through my Gmail, or maybe I mean can store it on a personal Dropbox. So how do I take control of these factors? So this is another important aspect. And the third and foremost is from a behavior perspective. I mean, there are three different personas which can be working. I mean, today Shalab is good, but tomorrow I think I'm not satisfied with the organization. I may be trying to make a move, or I'm a disgruntled employee. In such a situation, since I'm still an eligible employee, I'm having all the rights and all the accesses, I can be a potential threat. So this is a situation wherein I mean, my behavior has completely changed. Or other thing is, I mean, maybe my credentials are somehow compromised, and somebody else on my behalf is trying to access the business applications or touching the business data. In such a situation, how do we take care? Because the credentials on my, looks like that Shalab is kind of accessing, but it is not Shalab. It is somebody who else who is trying to access the data. So can we have some kind of behavior monitoring there? Or maybe a kind of a sloppy user, or maybe something which Shalab is trying to do unintentionally. Maybe just an example, I mean, coming to my mind, if today I need to submit a report which is currently in my Word document, I need to convert it on a PDF. Somehow I don't have a PDF writer. What is the easiest way? Maybe I'll take my document, go to some free sites, get the PDF converted. I mean, I have all the good intentions of doing my job, but what I have not taken care of is that I have taken the data outside my network, or outside to a third party website, wherein I don't know what is that he will be doing or utilizing that data for. So, I mean, there are different aspects of human behavior which needs to be taken care of. So I think these are some of the challenges which I foresee coming up, of not even forcing that. These are actually being faced by the organizations and CISOs and the IT community today. So what do you think? I mean, from a technology perspective, how do you, Brijesh, think that these challenges can be really taken care of from a technology standpoint, from a Forcepoint standpoint? Can you bring some light on that as well?
So Shalabh, what you mentioned here, I think I'm hearing from the last 2 months. I've done close to 60 sessions with multiple CISO and CIOs, and this is what is their problem statement is. And to be very frank, you are ahead, because you're also talking about the third scenario, because most of the people are still not talking about a third scenario, to be very frank. And my thought is how to bring an easiness in the third scenario, because if you watching a third scenario, you will be ahead of a hacker. And if we understand the mind of a hacker, how a hacker do hacking is, first of all, he does a social engineering, right? So we have to do a social engineering of Shalabh to understand Shalabh in a better way to provide a better security. Okay, so let's ahead of a hacker. Okay, that still talk as a marketing statement, but how can we adjust into a technology? Let's understand that. But before I pitch and put technologies to that, we have some of the experts here. We have a best of the breed CISO and CIOs on these platforms. Which understood so many technologies, and EliteCISOs are helping them in understand those technologies in depth. So I want to have their view on with one polling questions, that what's the view, what are the different technologies that can help them in this scenario. Okay, before I unfold and mention that what are the different technologies which are available to address this risk. So with that, Vinny, if you can just throw that polling questions. Yeah, thanks, Vinny. So the question says, what are the main technologies that CISO or CIOs are looking for addressing these challenges, which Shalabh has mentioned in the last slide? And this is going to be interesting, Shalabh.
I'm sure, absolutely. I mean, will let us get the views. I mean, how
or there may be more technologies which not there as an option in this. Please, you can put across into a chat box and Q&A as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think we have had a lot of responses. Should we see the results now?
Yeah, Vinny, we can go ahead. So majority of people says data security, yes, cloud security, private access, VPN, UEBA. Good that 33% feels that user protection is very important, and CASB. Yeah, thank you. So I think most of the people are very right that still data protection and user protection will focus, because those are the constant parameters, right? There's no edge which will be constant. There's no device will be constant. Okay, and there are so much technologies which started with an MDM. Another set of technologies are still not make any relevance now. Everyone wants something which could be stitched on the gateways. Okay, if it's an endpoint, it's stitched to be a unified endpoint. So let's take your example. Let's take Shalabh, who is working from home, has put the first and the foremost issue that the extremely bad guys, while accessing an internet, the Shalabh will be compromised by that, because we all know that the internet access is the first connection that will be provisioned. Okay, so what are the different technologies, and somehow some in the other way we are using that technologies in the enterprise currently, but see what's the combination of technologies that can be adopted. So secure web gateways, which we earlier called a proxy technology, we started maybe a normal URL filtering, matured over to a content filtering, shadow IT, with CASB integrations, with the cloud applications filters and all, has matured over the period of time. And along with that, a next generation firewall technologies, which also talk about not only a web traffic, but a non-web traffic as well, and talks about the technologies like intrusion preventions, AVs and edge. So this perspective completely talk about the technologies which can secure your edge, which can secure your user who is provisioning and accessing something over an internet. That something can be a cloud application, that can be a pure play internet. So how we can protect that is by provisioning a dynamic edge protection. I will come to a dynamic point of it, but we are focusing on edge protection. Now, this edge protection can be delivered to a customer who is currently on premise as an hybrid model. That can be delivered to a new customer who purely focusing on a mobility as a cloud model, or it can be provisioned as an on-premise model who are not yet matured onto a pure play web security and purely relying on a firewall. And how this can be enhanced with the technologies which really need at two time, because we are talking about a 0-day protection. Okay, we have seen multiple cases in India where the ransomware has really create a mess for the CISO and the CIOs and to be the top enterprise companies. Okay, so anti-APTs, remote browser isolations, these are the advanced threat mechanisms which will club and delivered as a dynamic edge protection platform from a Forcepoint side. Okay, so that will address your first and the foremost thing. And this dynamic edge platform will not only provide you a threat-centric view, it will also provide you a content and a context-centric view. Okay, it will have some dynamic nature to it. Okay, so this is falling into your firewall as a service technologies, your VPN technologies, okay, your private access technologies. I will cover what this dynamic edge platform into a bit detail also. The second problem statement which you mentioned is related to data. While I provision and access, while the user access a data and a cloud, okay, how we can bring a context attribute. And few of the CISOs ask me, Brijesh, we are using a data protection mechanism for our on-premise from the last 5-6 years. We have companies which are using Forcepoint DLP from the last 6-7 years. We are comparing it to BFSI, manufacturing, IT, ITS. So they ask, is our data protection strategies on hold? No, it just needs to be readjusted. It just needs to be re-enabled on few channels. It just needs to be readjusted with few new risks. Some new risk is data going onto a collaborations platform, data going over a Teams, data going over a Zoom, data going over a WebEx, okay, data going over to a Dropbox, as you mentioned. Okay, so the point is there are two things where your data is lying. One, your data is lying over a cloud. One, your data is lying over your applications hosted in data center. And there we can touch upon the technologies like CASBs, which are purely delivered over cloud. It's a broker service which delivers over cloud and make sure while users access your data, it should be passed through from an access rule of the CASB platform. And zero trust, which rephrased as a private access, is the next generation VPN technology, we can say. But it doesn't mean that it will get rid of a VPN. VPN have their own advantage. Private access will bring a visibility where you can only expose your applications with the better access control of your data. Rather than defining a more and more access controls on your VPN policies, you will have a zero trust access, which purely talking about an outbound connections from your data center rather than an inbound connections. Okay, so there's a complete technologies which works behind that. But keeping time in mind, there's a technology called CASB, there's a technology called zero trust access, which provide you a secure cloud application and data access. And it's a both-way communication. If your data is going from a cloud applications to the private access and the request is originated from Joe machine, it will be protected within your hybrid and a cloud environment. Okay, and only the data which is allowed will be secure. And it is integrated by your own data protection mechanisms. So whatever the data protection mechanisms you are using, where you have matured over the period of time, will be used as a base building block. Because you understand, CASB as a technology is not matured on the data protection. Yes, most of the CASB players are not mature data protection players. So the data protection players and the CASB players definitely needs to merge. These technologies will merge over the period of time. And Gartner also mentioned that in their CASB articles. Okay, so this technology which we are talking about is a dynamic data protection. So how I can bring the content attributes and how can I enhance over a context attribute, and bring a dynamic edge. So that's your second problem statement. Let's go to your third problem statement. So the third problem statement says that how I can build a behaviors, how I can build some behavioral analytics with not only indicators of compromise. So IOCs, we were talking about IOCs from so many years. We were talking about threat-centric view, how we can build a behavior-centric view. So those behavior-centric views are coming into pictures when we are doing a behavioral analytics. So what we have to do is we have to baselines. We have to baseline those behaviors. We have to understand those outliers. And we have to share these indicators of behaviors with the other platforms. So this is not only for my assessment. I needs to use these deep forensics and get some automations out of it, get some orchestrations out of it. Okay. And that's what we can do on an edge and data protection. So there's a risk score. I'll say risk in the industry is playing its game. I'll tell you, everyone which talks about a behavior, it says, I can provide you a risk, but risk also needs to be understood on a different level. Okay, what type of a risk? Is that a user-based risk? It's an activity-based risk. Is the risk is decaying over the period of time? So behavioral analytics talks about different aspects of this. Okay, and we do those risk assessments for the customer, for the different companies to give that visibility. And this all user call it as a dynamic edge protection. It's not static. Dynamic data protection. It's not static. It doesn't mean that if Shalabh has an access, he can do anything of that data. If Shalabh has an access, and if a Shalabh is going disgruntled over the period of time, and if his risk score is increasing, then Shalabh may not get access of that data because his behavior is now malicious. And that's what we are doing in dynamic user protection. Now, how this can be delivered? So this can be delivered by spinning an IPsec GRE back from a branch user. It can be delivered as a unified endpoint covering your dynamic edge, dynamic user, dynamic data protection as a unified agent onto Shalabh's machine. Okay, so it's not a different agent. We are not saying VPN is a separate agent, CASB is a separate agent, DLP is a separate agent. And that's what we are going to deliver with what you call it as a SASE buzzword or a zero trust buzzword. That's up to a marketing statement. I think it's more for Vinny, but from a technology perspective, it's these three aspects which will drive the market: edge, data, and user. So what's your view on that, Shalabh?
I think you've appropriately put in. I mean, the challenges you have taken care from a technology standpoint. I mean, I will try to. I mean, there's one interesting dimension which you have put in is from a user perspective. I mean, we are taking care of the edge, we are taking care of the data, but user behavior is very, very important. I think, and that's a very, very important and significant dimension which is getting added. I mean, I'm remembering probably, I mean, people on the, I mean, the discussion today also would have known some of the breaches which are publicly available breaches which have happened into some of the large organizations like maybe Tesla or Equifax. I'm remembering those are the breaches which has happened, and it was typically from a user perspective, and breaches were known from few months to maybe a year, and significantly, I mean, it has led to the loss of reputation, fines, everything. I mean, but one thing which is common among all the breaches is that we were doing post-breach analysis in spite of using best-of-breed technologies. And that is where exactly this user behavior comes into picture. Had there been some kind of user monitoring or user behavior there, which I can foresee, probably that would have thought of, I mean, we could have done something from a pre-breach perspective, or the organizations would have done something from a pre-breach perspective, probably at that point of time. It's kind of understanding the behavior and then connecting it with the technologies together to take timely and corrective action. So that is very, very important, Brijesh. That is what I see. What is your view?
Yeah, so I think what you mentioned is correctly right, that most of the breaches are really been discovered at an early stage if we are assuming a user focused perspective. Okay, and I have seen one of the question where we say how it's different from UEBA. UEBA is definitely a platform. Okay, it's not an approach. It's not giving you a view that how it needs to be approached. Okay, what are the different models and the features needs to be discovered, and it needs to be understood. UEBA is only a solution which can only be configured in a better way based on the knowledge of a person. Okay, these are the solutions which are highly functional perspective rather than just a technology perspective. So how we are doing a different in the user protection technologies that we are providing is I'm bringing some technology aspects of it, and how the approach can be readjusted rather than only focusing on an edge and data, because everyone understood over a period of time what we can do on an edge perspective, what we can do on a data perspective. I bringing more attentions on a user perspective because that's a piece which will drive this market going forward. Okay, so user data and devices, we all understand user data knowledge is needs to be a continuous activity monitoring. And that's what, if we go back and understand CARTA as a framework, which talks about continuous adaptive risk and trust assessment. It's not saying only risk needs to be continuously checked and adapted. The trust also needs to be continuously checked. And the trust is coming from your users. Okay, risk is coming from your components, from your data. So it needs to be continuous. And the risk evaluation also needs to be continuous. It should also be decay over the period of time. If Shalabh is doing certain things over the period of time which has now reduced, then the risk should also be decay. And we have also make sure that the privacy should go by design, because most of the CISO and the privacy officer ask me, Brijesh, we are talking about a user protection, we are talking about a privacy, how we can make sure now the people are working from home, they have their own laptops, how we can segregate the corporate risk and a privacy risk. So there are so many questions. Okay, so we have make sure the privacy is configured in this user protection by design. We are making sure that the masking, we are making sure that the anonymous access, all those things needs to be taken care. But the intent that which we want to develop from your user protection is a deep visibility. Don't deliver it that, okay, what is the value and ROI that we'll get, how many virus, how many protection this DUP will provide to me. Let's not materialize with that. Let's understand how many unknowns can be discovered with these technologies which I'm not known to it. Okay, so risk assessment is talk about that. When we do a risk assessment from a data perspective, user perspective, we talk about what are the different unknowns which are there in my organizations, which I can discover with these tools. Okay, rather than just indicators of IOCs, focus on what are the different behaviors, and that's definitely demands sometimes of a user level monitoring. So let me unfold, and I have purely focused and trying to explain these portfolios that we have rather than drilling down into other portfolios. So I thought, keeping time in mind, let me focus on this portfolio. So this portfolio is not new to Forcepoint. Okay.
Brijesh, I would
Do you
like
have
to,
any questions, Shalabh?
yeah, Brijesh, I mean, since you have been mentioning indicators of compromise and indicators of behavior. So one question which is coming in very clearly is that how do you explain indicators of behavior? What is that indicator of behavior doesn't really mean? I mean, how does it affect? So can you please explain that quickly?
Okay. So we can share you a white paper. So we have developed our X Labs team. So previously we were having only our security labs team. Now we have our X Labs team. The X Labs teams are building on indicators of behavior. So indicators of behaviors means, let's understand what was indicators of compromise. Indicators of compromise was a databases which comprises of multiple file hashes, multiple URL hashes, multiple domains, which was used as a indicators of compromise. Okay, different behaviors, like someone is logging to a safe mode into a machine, someone is logging a cloud file sync. It can be now an indicators of behaviors. Someone is working out of office hours. Some are working from home, but not done a print, maybe more than 10. Now he's doing 100 prints a day. It can be an indicators of compromise. So indicators of behavior. So there are multiple indicators of behaviors. And I'll tell you, Shalabh and someone who will pretend that he's Shalabh, behaviors will not be same. Behaviors are not 0 and 1. Your behavior and a hacker behavior who predict to be Shalabh will not be same. And And that's where the cybersecurity is moving, that if you understand the behavior attributes in a better way, and you have different indicators of behaviors, which will be ingested to the user protection platforms, edge protection platform, and a dynamic platforms, will help you in saying that this particular user is a suspicious user. This particular user behavior is a sloppy behavior. This particular user's behavior is a compromised behavior. And that's where you can discover different user personas. Okay, so that's the base. If you have a good indicators of behaviors in a UEBA terms, we can say if you have a good modeling structures, if you have a good feature structures, you can build a better scenarios. Okay, so just mapping to that. So
Great.
from a user protection portfolio, just keeping time in mind, it's not new to Forcepoint. Okay, we our parent company Raytheon, okay, which coming from a US federal, is very much understands what's the insider threat perspective, what's the user perspective, because these insider threat terms started from a defense mechanisms. Okay, insider threats was typically related to it. Some has violated a very confidential document of a defense, and it can be treated as an insider threat, which is pertaining to a user. Now we are talking about a cyber behavior and mapping to an insider threat. So what we have done over the period of time, we have also matured it and also make it ready for the commercial market rather than only focusing on a US federal market. Okay, because when you go to a US federal and all, it's a most CLI, Linux, Unix based. You will get only limited GUI. Over the period of time, we have enabled those GUI mechanisms in these technologies. So we have 100 plus clients globally, multiple user deployments all across. Now we have that in India as well. Okay, so the solutions that we talk about is an insider threat solutions, the behavioral analytics solutions, which also goes on the terminologies of a UEBA. And then what we have also developed is a user protection offering, which comes as a SaaS services back to our customers. So insider threat is a solutions which talks about an endpoint, how I can bring a more visibility from an endpoint. Because if we understand endpoint in a better way, if we understand that user machines in a better way, we can cover all the encrypted communications which are blind to most of the UEBA on the network. Okay, so most of the UEBA on the networks are blind to encrypted communications that can only be visible from an endpoint, and we can do a desktop video replay, video collections and all. From a behavior analytics perspective, we can build the orchestration platforms. Okay, we have already built that for our data protections. We have already built our from an edge protections, and we have already built that with other single sign-on and IAM third-party vendors as well. From a user protection perspective, we are focusing on specific indicators of behaviors, and we are also offering that as a functional professional services, which we call as an insider risk advisory services, because these are highly functional tools rather than only a technology tools. Okay, so this is just, I want to give you a brief. We can have a more discussions one-to-one if some of the customers needs to understand in a more detail rather than going on to this. So from an edge perspective, okay, I was talking about a dynamic edge, and I think most of the customer has these issue because edge needs to be provisioned first, is also split into how to secure an internet, how to secure the private traffic. Okay, the traffic which is hitting data center, traffic which is hitting my own private cloud, how to secure that, and how to secure a thing which is over an internet. So the various building blocks that we have, so we have divided into two pieces. One is a cloud security gateway, which offered as a cloud offering, as a hybrid offering, as an on-premise, and other is a private access. So components which plays a role, we have already discussed on these technologies like web security, NT-APT, remote browser, isolations, data protection, CASB, delivered as an internet web traffic. And that's what we offer. We have a customers who are using that now. Few pieces which they are using, and now they are onboarding most. Like web security vendors, which was not onboarding NT-APTs, now focusing on NT-APTs for their remote workforce. They are focusing on a data protection, not only from an agent point of view, but from a data theft point of view. And same for private access. Those who are wants to move from a VPN base to a private access, now focusing on a private access. But the unique differentiators with us that we are talking about private access, not only just from provisioning access. We are a pure play IPS and a next generation firewall player. So we understand those vulnerabilities, we understand those evasions in a better way rather than any private access pieces. Okay. So this is what we do overall on a technology perspective. What's your view on that, Shalab? Is that make sense? Do you have any
So,
myth in your mind
guys,
which
we
is
have
not
just
clear?
one more minute to go. So,
Last slide with
quickly answer
us.
that, Shalaf. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Vikas, for reminding the time. I mean, I just want to say that from this perspective, I think that this is going to be a unique offering when we talk about cloud security gateway, which is a unique combination. I mean, it is everything on cloud from a data perspective, from an edge perspective, and similarly accessing the applications securely. We talk about zero trust environment. So this is kind of giving the complete solution from a access and the data and user security, which is what the topic of today, which is talking about demystifying the user and security. So that is what my take, Brijesh, on this is.
Yeah, absolutely, Shalab. And before we conclude, I also want that Vinny, if we can take some few questions, because I know there are multiple questions that are there. Just one question I want to take before Vinny, you put across. Yes, there are multiple differentiators. See, we are coming from a technologies players. Who are pioneers in web security, data security, and a user security. So definitely we have those differentiators with us. So we can have a one-to-one discussions and bring those technology differentiators back to you. But what we are focusing on, that each and every technologies are assessed by the third parties, which is now provisioned as a cloud offering. Just to give you a view, we are not doing in a partner model only, that it's a partner product for us. Yes, we are not working in silos. We have an APIs to integrate with partner products, but the technologies that we are talking about is purely a Forcepoint own technologies. Yeah, Vinny.
Thank you, Shalab and Brijesh. I hope this has been a useful session for the audiences who had joined in today. And we have a lot of questions, but keeping in mind the time and, and seeing Vikas's face that we should be wrapping up soon. Just kidding. We will get back to you. We have taken a note of all the questions that you have put across the chat window or to the panelists directly, and we will get back to you. Stay assured on all those questions on a one-on-one basis. And if you have anything more, then you can fill in the feedback form for your inputs, any other questions, and reach out to us. Even I have left a Forcepoint events@forcepoint.com email ID for any queries that you might have for us. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to be a part of this platform. Over to you, Vikas.
Thanks, Vinny. Brijesh, can you stop sharing if possible?
Yeah, Vikas.
Great, thanks. So let me quickly share my screen. Let me know when you guys see it, please. Great. So as I mentioned that once you attend this webinar, you will receive a CPE certificate. So once you fill the form which has been sent into the chat window, you will receive a certificate like this, which you can use for your CPE credits. And obviously your name will be there, not my name. So don't worry about that. And this is the form that you guys need to fill. Okay. And the secret is, many people are trying to fuzz this. People are putting EliteCISO, Forcepoint, Modern Edge. So the answer is keep learning. Okay, all small case, no space. Once you enter this, then you will get your certificate. Now the last thing is that everyone is waiting for is the Amazon Alexa Wheel of Fortune. So what I'm going to do is I will spin this Wheel of Fortune, and all the emails, all the official emails who got registered for this webinar are there in this wheel, and I will spin it. It will automatically and randomly pick one individual, and that winner will get the Amazon Alexa. Just to mention, EliteCISO members who are joining and Forcepoint members, if your names are there, you are not eligible for this. Okay. So I'm going to spin it. You have to be in the session to claim your Amazon Alexa. And then once you are there, confirm it over the chat window that you are here. Okay. I'm going to spin it now. Okay. Let's see. Mr. Sandeep A from QASL, are you there? Put it on the chat window if you are there in the audience today. Let me see the chat. Mr. Sandeep. Okay, I don't see your response on the chat, so that means you will miss the opportunity. I will ensure that I send you an email saying that your name was there. Okay, I'm going to spin it one more time. Let's see.
I think Sandeep is here.
Oh,
Just
he's
got a
here?
chat.
Let me see. Chat, you got to be quick. No, not Sandeep Jamgani. You're not the one.
Okay.
It's a different one. Mr. Ravi Saxena from Central Bank of India. Mr. Ravi Saxena. Okay, he is also not here. So remove him and then spin it one more time. Sandeep, hard luck, man. Let's see. Okay, Rajneesh Singh. Oh, this goes to EliteCISO Delhi chapter. He's there in all the webinars. I'm not sure if he's there today or not. Rajneesh, are you there? You got to type in the chat. Okay, Rajneesh, you are also not there. Amazing. Oh, you are there. Yes.
Yes, he is.
Perfect. Perfect. Great. Okay, guys. Thank you very much, Brijesh, Shalab, and Vinny, and everyone else for joining in. The recording is available. We will post it on the site. And Mr. Rajneesh, you will get your Amazon Alexa as well. Thanks everyone for joining. Bye for now.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Thank you everyone for joining.